About ready? Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Today is Friday, November 3rd. I'm glad y'all are here today. It's good to see so many shining faces out there. We're going to start our program off with Pastor Charles Johnson, the Executive Director, Pastors for Texas Children, with the invocation, followed by Henry Borbola with the national anthem. Please rise with me. Let's pray together. Taking a deep breath and giving thanks for the gift of life, for being on God's planet, and for being on that part of God's planet with these beautiful people. Hear our prayer of thanksgiving, O Lord. We're grateful for all your abundant gifts to us. Good food, high purpose, abundant love. Accept our thanks for this Rotary Club, for all of the wonderful projects that you lead us to do, mobilizing all of the gifts and graces that you've poured into these leaders. Lord, we pray a prayer of asking your forgiveness for messing up your world. The world's messed up right now. But we believe that something that will be said here today and experienced here today in this Rotary Club will help us find a more excellent way to beat swords into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks, and study war no more. Let it be, for it's in your strong name that we pray, and all the people of God said, amen. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous strife o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you very much. That's great, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Cheryl Gillian, you here? Come on up and give us a visitor introduction, please.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have a slew of guests with us today. Victor Neal brought Rebecca Leppert and Casey Mendez. Are y'all supposed to stand? There you are. We've got Dawn Maribel brought Wendy Burgess and Jerry Cantu. Tom Williams brought guest Zach Halber. With Greg Carter is Donna Upchurch. With Mac Kimball is Jeremy Campbell. With past President Courtney Lewis, we've got Randy Daniel. John Latta brought Jim, I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name wrong. Weithelder. I got it. Thank you. We've got two guests with Jason Ellis. We've got Cindy Hames and Sophia Swafford. Mike Herman brought Kevin Kinsley. And Brad Nowlin also has two guests, Michelle McQueen and Anne Marie McQueen. Welcome, everyone.
guest today is his mother, and today her name is Donna. Today she turns 75.
Happy birthday. Now, Don, you said today her name is Donna. Does that change or? Happy birthday. And Greg, thanks for bringing her. Now it's time for the four-way test. For all of our visitors, the four-way test is something that each of us as Rotarians strive to use as a filter in everything we think, say, or do. If it doesn't match the test, well, we try not to think it, say it, or do it. If y'all all please repeat along with me. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Now, throwing that out the window for just a few moments, let me introduce Mr. Gary Cumby up to the stage, please, for our newscast.
Yes, I can wait. Go ahead. Well, thank you for that tremendous welcome. And on the heels of that, I hate to say this, but we're having technical difficulties today. I prepared my newscast to be done with slides, but apparently I used the wrong format, and they don't seem to work with our projection system. Tom's been trying to correct that. Tom, any luck? Where is Tom? Tom, I guess chickened out on the, oh, there he is. Any luck at all on getting? AOL's out. AOL's out, okay. Well. All right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do my newscast without slides today, but you might not get the full impact, so. Wait a minute, I have an idea. Let's see if this works. I want you to ignore these two screens over on the side, and I want you to imagine that behind me here is a huge screen, a huge video screen, and when I describe a slide, I want you to picture it in your mind. Maybe we can get through the newscast this way, okay? Now, to help, coincidentally, I just happen to have a little clicker in my pocket that I can advance the slides with, so ready to give it a try? All right. I will say this, those of you on the sides might want to move in so you can see a little better. Okay. How about them Rangers? Here they are celebrating the other night. That's Budweiser and pretty expensive champagne they're wasting. They won the World Series in 5 games. They won all 11 away games. They set all kinds of records. Now remember, the experts predicted they would lose in the playoffs to Tampa Bay, and then that they would lose to Baltimore. And when they won there, they said they would lose to Houston. Just let that be a reminder as to what the term expert means. It's a compound word. An X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. Just pay them no mind. By the way, the Rangers are being honored right now by a parade at the ballpark, and I believe we have live video. Pretty good parade, huh? So far, only one injury has been reported. A certain Star-Telegram sports columnist finally decided to jump on the Rangers bandwagon, and it was moving too fast for him. Get better soon, Mac. In national news, our own club member, Kay Granger, has decided to retire from Congress after 3 decades there. Let's give her a round of applause. She has been a wonderful... Kay says she's tired of all the controversy. She's going to come home and run for school board. From the technology desk, here is a sneak peek at Apple's prototype for the iPhone 17. It'll be known as the Republican model. It comes without a speaker. Oh, you can get one, but it'll take forever. From our climate desk, here is a map of the Gulf of Mexico. And as you can see, there is a storm forming which could become Hurricane Vince. Now, we have all the rest of November remaining in the hurricane season, but there have been so many storms, Vince is the next to the last name on the list. And my cousin, Little Bubba Jr., has come up with an idea to reduce the number of hurricanes each year. He says we should shorten the hurricane season. LBJ, that's what we call Little Bubba Jr., thought about becoming a meteorologist, but decided that there weren't enough meteors to hold his attention, so he decided to focus on the weather instead. Now, here's a political story. The Biden presidential campaign has come up with an interesting idea for fundraising. It's a raffle. For donors who give the maximum legal amount, they will have a chance in a drawing for a prize worth $500,000. Here's a picture of that prize. Yes, it's a genuine Hunter Biden original painting worth $500,000, or so they say. I think I may have that slide in backwards, or maybe sideways or something. Anyway, that's the grand prize. Second prize is 2 Hunter Biden originals. By the way, they say that Hunter creates these masterpieces by blowing paint through a straw. It's an idea he came up with while inhaling something through a straw. From the education desk, here's a shot of a group of school board members from all across Tarrant County celebrating a judge's decision this week that will prevent the Texas Education Agency from issuing report cards on the success of school districts. And here are students from all across Tarrant County saying, "Hey, Judge, we don't want report cards either." In international news, surely you recognize this location. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. It's a view of the Eiffel Tower across the River Seine. And that bright red structure in the foreground, well, that's not a mailbox. It's a public urinal. It's what the French call a pissoir. And they are all over Paris to provide a more sanitary option for those seeking urgent relief. This is strictly a French thing. In most other European capitals, this would be a no-no. But in Paris, it's a oui-oui. Staying in Europe for another story, this is the Vatican, home of Pope Francis and his staff. Well, it seems that the Pope has decided that his digs need a makeover, and for the duration of the project, which may take a year, all papal activities will be moved to this famous tower in Pisa, Italy. Yeah, that's it. And by the way, during his time in Pisa, the tower will be known as the Leanin' Pope Home. From the literary world, here's a new bestseller. And as you can see, its title is Miss Dallas. But it isn't about a beauty contest. It's a travel guide. And finally, here is a view of Lake Worth and its shoreline from the Loop 820 bridge. And in this close-up, you can see how the shoreline has been damaged from underneath. That's the product of large scavenger fish who are actually trying to dig their way out of the lake. State biologists have investigated. They say it's carpal tunnel syndrome. I just report it. Little Bubba Jr. says the weather this weekend will be really nice. And remember, he's an expert. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Gary. So I got to tell a story on Gary. Several years ago, I come back from Thailand where I was doing my Peace Fellowship for the club, and I was a presenter for the day. And I was going to talk about all the stuff that we did over there and the whole fellowship, and Gary was a newscaster that day. Now, I invited my chief, I invited all kinds of family, friends and stuff, and my chief at the time, Chief Joel Fitzgerald, well, I'll come back to that. A few weeks earlier, we'd had several newscasters come in and do a lot of bashing on the Republican side of the house. And Gary came in that day and started out his newscast with, okay, we've had a lot of bashing on the Republicans. Today is the day we're gonna even the score. Yeah, my chief is a hardcore Democrat. And here I am sitting, falling slowly under the seat as each joke got progressively worse towards the Democrats. Incidentally, I got transferred out that day from the program I was in to the midnight shift. I'm sure it was unrelated. Nonetheless, all right, thank you for your newscast today. I hope it didn't offend too many people. So, Carol Genovese Del Real, please come on up and give us where you at, Carol? Come on up. Greg Carter, you're on deck, followed by Aubrey Gideon. So come on up and get in line. Give your announcement.
Okay, well, it's an exciting day with the Rangers, right? But what's bigger and better than baseball? Our veterans, our veterans. So I would like to know how many people are going to be in the Veterans Day Parade with us. We've got our Rotary float. It's going to be exciting on next Saturday at 11 o'clock. We'll be meeting at Panther Island at 10:30, and we will be wearing our shirts Saturday. So can you hold up your hand if you're going to be in the parade? We need more hands, come on. The parade for the veterans next Saturday. Okay. If there's any way you can change or make your schedule work to be in the parade, that would be awesome, and I hope to see you then. And also, next Friday is our big veterans meeting, and we want to honor all of our Rotary veterans and really veterans across our country. So please come next Friday too, and I hope you will be at the parade and wear your shirt.
All right, thank you. Greg Carter, where you at? Come on up.
Thanks. Good afternoon and happy holidays. It is time for us to do our 5th annual We Care. Tom, if you'll just advance them. We Care is where we all go to the east side and we build crafts, Christmas crafts, holiday crafts with the kids there. It's a wonderful time. These are some of the crafts from the past. Keep going, Tom. We've had carolers, chaperones, craft makers. About 200 kids will be there. This is in an area of town that has one of the highest maternal mortality rates. So every year we go and we show these kids love. So I'm asking you to come. Like I said, we've got 15 tables that we can have. We've got 11 of them. We need about 60 volunteers. I'm hoping the carolers will be there to sing again, but that's the date, December 12th. On your tables is an IR code, a QR code. If you'll just scan that, or you can reach out to me through Aurora. That's it. Thanks, Cap.
Thank you, Greg. You know, he was talking with me about this a while back, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, you get to see, Greg, you get to see the kids growing up in this, right? How many years you been doing this?
We're doing it 5, and we see the same kids coming through with your eyes on them. You can look at their eyes each year.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. All right, Aubrey. Aubrey?
Happy birthday to my mom over here.
Come on.
Right. The social committee would like y'all to pencil in November 30th for a holiday networking event. Details are to follow, but if you haven't been to a networking event, the vast majority of people in this room are very likable. So please put that on your calendar. We would like to see all of you and enjoy each other's company. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Blue badges, Rupa Ayer, Erica Ramos, Zoran Gutik. Come on up. Let's exchange those red for blue now. Right to the front. Okay. What we got here? Take that one. And I'll take that. Thank you. Got yours right here. Just walking up with me. Yep, same thing. Thank you very much. All right. Oh, you want them all up here? Everybody come on back. Come on back, hurry up. Right up here.
Step down.
All right. Thank you, each of y'all. For those who are uninitiated, when you join the club, you get a red badge. 6 acts of service, and we convert it to blue. Acts of service to the club, being greeters, being saying the invocation, the newscast, stuff like that. So good job on getting those exchanged. Now, for the main event, John Fletcher is slated to be the chairman of the day, but I don't see John. He's not here, and this isn't a joke. This is real deal. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, and it's going to be very brief. Our speaker today, Special Agent in Charge Chad Yarborough, is out of the Dallas Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. He's got 22 years with the FBI. He originally hails from Van, Texas, off to the east of here. He's been all over the place, to include Chicago, Alabama, and several other points around the country, doing various types of investigations. He's here now with the Dallas office. I don't know how much longer you're going to stay on. I'm sure you can tell us about that. But he has a wife and 1 child, a wife, Lindsay, right? So please help me welcome Special Agent Yarborough.
All right, well, good afternoon. It is afternoon. Thank you for having me over here today, and thanks, Kirk, for the warm welcome. I've had the opportunity to actually speak to the Dallas Rotary as well, and I will tell you, you might actually do it better and have a lot more attendees. So there you go. Just don't tell them I said that, right? But no, I'm very glad to be here today. I've been the special agent in charge here in the Dallas division for going on about 8 months. I am the first, as we've come to research, native Texan to actually lead the Dallas field office. I will tell you, when I began this journey 22 years ago, I had no expectations that I would ever want to be in leadership. All I really wanted to do was just, kick in doors and put people in jail, right? But somehow along that journey, you're encouraged to take another step. And then once you're in that step, you have to take all these other steps. And so somehow I've been blessed and humbled to lead this office here in Dallas. I will tell you, when this position came open, I had some conversations with our management, and the director ultimately called to let me know he thought that this would be a good place for me to be. And so again, I'm just blessed and humbled to be here, especially overseeing an area that I grew up in. So a little bit about the Dallas division. We cover 137 counties, span about 125,000 square miles. We have about 700 special agents, task force officers, intelligence analysts, and professional staff here assigned to the Dallas division, spread out over about 12 resident agencies. So we cover all the way over to Amarillo, and then down to San Angelo, over to Lufkin, and up to Texarkana. So we cover East Texas and North Texas and a little bit of West Texas. But I will tell you, I've been extremely impressed since being here. The men and women of the FBI Dallas are really about the mission. They really are. And so today, what I would like to do is just walk us through a little bit about our office, my priorities as the leader of that office, and where I'm really focused on as far as leadership, and then ultimately get into our threat picture on our current threat environment and all the various threats that we are working to address at the FBI. So first and foremost, I think the slide is up, but it really has up there our mission. And for me, that is the most important part of the Bureau, is our mission, right? It's to protect the American public, and it's to uphold the Constitution of the United States. That's why I joined this agency. That's why I always wanted to be an FBI agent since I can remember. And so that is what we have to be centered on. That is what really, drives us each and every day. And I can tell you the men and women of the Dallas FBI are very passionate about that mission. But more importantly, it's about having that vision of being ahead of the threat, and where do we really need to be as far as taking us to that level. Our adversaries are constantly evolving. They're constantly changing their tactics. Technology is constantly evolving. We have to be ahead of the threat as best we can. And so there are a lot of challenges there in doing that. And so for me, my focus has been on our people, on our process, on our partnerships, and innovation. So I'll just talk briefly to those four before I move on to our threat pictures. So first and foremost, it's about our people. For me, having 700 employees who are just passionate about the mission, it's making sure that we're taking care of them, that we're cultivating good leaders, more importantly, so that I leave this division better than I found it. And we do have a lot of challenges when it comes to getting good people to step into leadership positions. And so I've established a lot of various programs within our office to identify those future leaders, those who exhibit those qualities that we want in future leaders of the organization, who are passionate about the mission, and that will take this agency to the next year, 5, 10 years out. So that's been a huge focus for me. Recruiting obviously has been extremely at the forefront for us. For the FBI, we had our best recruiting year we've ever had last year. We had more applicants than we've ever had. And that is really not what you're seeing right now when it comes to the local and state level. And so I have a lot of conversations with chiefs, with the head of DPS, just on some of the areas they're trying to improve in that recruiting aspect. But for us, we graduated close to 1,000 agents last year at the Academy, one of our highest graduation years. And I will tell you that those classes really consisted of law enforcement, prior law enforcement and military. There was about 60% last year that had that as their background. And out of our graduates, almost 60% had advanced degrees. So we're talking masters, doctorates, and the such. And then in 40%, were actually female agents, which is one of our largest years to have females in our academy. So we're doing well. I will tell you that I'm always blown away when I meet with all of our new agents. I sit down every time we have a new agent report and talk to them and understand a little bit about their background and just reinforce our goals and mission there in the Bureau. But I'm always blown away by their backgrounds. And I tell you, I'm often sitting there contemplating, I don't know if I could actually be in the Bureau these days. So it really is humbling to see such great people that we're recruiting in. But we have to keep that up. And so that's obviously been a huge focus for myself and the office to ensure that we're pushing towards diversity and that we are establishing a cadre of individuals who are consistent with our populations that we serve. And then also making sure that we are focused on our training and development. And a lot of that leads into the innovation piece that I will talk about here shortly, but it's making sure that we are trained and at the tip of the spear when it comes to, all that we do in addressing our threats and our investigations. So I'll move on to process. Process is also another one of those core pillars that I'm focused on. For us, it is doing the right thing the right way each and every time. For myself, it's about calling balls and strikes. At the FBI, we are there to investigate violations of federal law, no matter who committed those violations. And so we have to be independent. We have to leave any type of politics, religion, whatever the case may be at the door, and we have to call balls and strikes. And so for me, it's just making sure that we are following our policies and procedures in everything we do, doing it the right way each and every time. And if we do that, then we'll be able to stand tall in the decisions that are ultimately made by the U.S. Attorney's Office to proceed with an investigation. Another part of process has really been looking at our rigor and how we are addressing the threats as they come in. And when I say that, I talk about all of the tips that we receive. In the Bureau, we receive about 4,500 tips a day that are ultimately processed and sent out to field offices all across the country. And in those tips, we have what we call threats to life. And those are those we call them guardians, and those tips are ultimately information that has an allegation that someone's life has been threatened in some way. And a lot of that revolves around social media, as you can only imagine. But we have to take all of those very seriously, because you just never know if this is the real thing or not. And so that takes up a lot of resources, as you can imagine. So for us, it's making sure that we have the rigor in our investigations to address each and every tip, especially those that are threat to life allegations, so that we can protect this country and keep it safe. I will get in more into the Allen Outlet Mall shooting that you all may be very familiar with, that we were heavily involved in. But again, that goes to a subject who, if we had had information about some of his ideology, his armament, and the fact that he had fascinations with multiple active shooters and mass casualty events that occurred across this country, then maybe we could have prevented something along those lines. And so for us, it's making sure that our processes are correct, that they're being followed, and that we have rigor in all that we do to make sure that we do that extra step each and every time to try to address any type of threat to life. I definitely wanted to touch on partnership. For me, partnership really falls into 4 buckets. First and foremost, it's our law enforcement partnerships. I will tell you, here in North Texas, we have the greatest law enforcement leaders that I've ever met. I've been around this country from east to west and overseas, and I will tell you that Chief Noakes, Chief Garcia, they are premier leaders as far as I'm concerned when it comes to law enforcement. And I think we're very blessed here in North Texas to just have phenomenal leaders there. But it's all about partnerships for us. It's not anymore about stovepiping information. It's about sharing information. And I will tell you that every department in North Texas leans in when it comes to sharing information and making sure that there's no stovepipes. And so we are extremely focused on ensuring we have great partnerships there. We have close to 50 departments on our task forces in the Dallas field office. Of those 50 field offices, we have about 170 task force officers that are spread out over 20 task forces. So as you can imagine, we rely very heavily on our law enforcement partners at both the state, county, and the federal level to really work alongside us in our offices to address everything from counterterrorism on our Joint Terrorism Task Force to our Safe Streets Task Force, who are really focusing on our gangs, to our violent crime, where we're focusing more on carjackings, bank robberies, and the such. So we have phenomenal relationships with our partners. And that's really what led, I think, to the successful response more recently of the Allen Premium Outlet Mall shooting, where we worked side by side with DPS and the Allen Police Department to respond to that incident and ultimately investigate that subject and his motive and better understand how we may be able to take efforts in the future to prevent something like that from happening. In that incident, we obviously deployed everything from our SWAT team to our evidence response team, but more importantly, our victim services division. We had a big role in ensuring that the victims, who were hundreds and hundreds of people at the mall that day, were taken care of and received the resources they needed following that event they were so impacted by. Everything from providing them those services to just coordinating getting them their cars back. We had close to 2,000 cars, I believe, that were abandoned in that parking lot, and we had to coordinate, getting those individuals back to their vehicles. So everything down to the detail had to be handled, and our victim services were really the primary part of that. We wound up surging, I believe, close to 100 people in to support us, and of that, 20 were victim specialists from around the country. But it's not just about our law enforcement partners. More importantly, I think that we have to also have a strong relationship and partnership with our community. For the FBI, we cannot function without the trust of our community and providing information that we need to do our job, to do those investigations. And so we have to be sure that we're connected at all levels of our community. A lot of that has been, for me, focusing on our Citizens Academy. I know we have an alumni here today, there he is, Mac. I think all of you know Mac. And so if you're interested in ever going through our Citizens Academy, we do sponsor that once a year. Unfortunately, we do get a lot of applications and have to whittle it down to about 50 each year. But please, if you're interested in learning more about the FBI and who we are about and what we do and all of our investigations and our people, please consider that and get with Mac. He can sponsor you as part of that application. But we also do teen academies. We're constantly doing community outreach in our neighborhoods. It's really just important that we hit everyone we can when it comes to the community to ensure that they understand more about what we do, that we really are part of their community. We all live here. We all want to keep it safe. And so ultimately, it's all about making sure that they put a face with a name and understand a little bit more about our mission and our priorities, and that we really are part of their communities. Another big aspect of our partnership, obviously, is the private sector. At this day and age, when it comes to our cyber threats and our counterintelligence threats, we have to be in lockstep with our partners. And so here in North Texas, we have almost 50 Fortune 500 companies that we are in routine contact with, because they are obviously huge targets when it comes to cyber threats and counterintelligence threats. And so we have a great, robust program when it comes to our private sector outreach. And then lastly, it's academia. Again, it goes back to the counterintelligence threat that we face in this country. I will get into that a little bit more in the presentation, but China, Russia, Iran, they are all constantly seeking to steal our intellectual property and gain access to our systems and our critical infrastructure for multiple reasons. And so we have to be in lockstep with our academia and our private sector when it comes to those threats. And then lastly, I wanted to touch on innovation. For me, this is a huge component of those 4 core pillars. We are constantly looking at how we can do our investigations better and be ahead of our threats, right? We've had huge advancements, especially when it comes to investigative genealogy. So I'll just touch on that briefly. We've been very successful as of late in solving cold cases, both serial homicides, serial sexual assaults, based on investigative genealogy. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, it's really tracing DNA, ancestral DNA, to ultimately make a determination that the subject of that investigation is probably related to the person who we have their DNA, and then ultimately branching out, backtracking that family tree, if you will, into someone who we believe may be that suspect. Where are they connected into the homicide or the sexual sexual assault or whatever we're investigating. And so that is really, I think, what is going to take us into the future when it comes to investigations. You know, with the FBI, we initially started with fingerprints, right? And then we moved on to DNA. And now we're into the investigative genealogy, where we will be able to solve crimes almost instantly based on DNA databases. And so it's really impressive to see. I will tell you, one case that you may be familiar with were the students up in the Northwest who were killed and stabbed to death. I think there was 4 students who were killed in that attack, who ultimately that case was solved strictly through investigative genealogy. And we're using that now every day on cold cases. We have a cold case task force that I've established here in the Dallas division that's working with all of our departments around the North Texas area to submit cases that they have DNA, but they don't have matches of that DNA. Those individuals aren't in CODIS, if you will, which is the national database for criminals. And so ultimately we're making some great advancement there. And so we're really leveraging that investigative genealogy technology in our investigations. Also, cryptocurrency. We have virtual asset response teams now. We have one here in the Dallas area that are constantly learning the latest and greatest when it comes to crypto, when it comes to virtual assets. There is not any sophisticated advanced investigation that we conduct in the FBI these days that doesn't touch on virtual assets and cryptocurrency. So we obviously are leaning in there. And then I will touch on just briefly artificial intelligence. You know, AI is here to stay. There is not a business out there that is not leveraging AI or trying to figure out how AI can advance their business lines. And so there's been a lot of great advancements in our economy when it comes to artificial intelligence. But with that, obviously criminal actors are leveraging that in investigations that we're seeing, whether it's creating child pornography where you don't have a victim now, but it's very realistic and it's artificially derived, whether it's creating perfect business email compromise emails that are being blasted out in the hopes of getting access to your computer systems. We're seeing it all over the gamut of our threats when it comes to artificial intelligence and leveraging that. So for the FBI, it's really been threefold as far as how we're looking at artificial intelligence. First and foremost, it's how's it being leveraged in our criminal investigations, right? And so trying to get our head wrapped around that and how our adversaries are going to use that into the future. It's also about protecting AI. As you can imagine, most of the AI that's been generated has been generated here in the United States. It's proprietary information of a lot of different companies. And obviously our adversaries, China, Russia, just to speak of the main two, are constantly trying to steal that information, right? They want our algorithms, they want our information, they definitely want more and more about AI and quantum computing. And so they are taking aggressive stances when it comes to trying to obtain that and get into our businesses and databases to retrieve that. And so we're having to conduct cyber and counterintelligence investigations to ultimately mitigate that. And then thirdly, it's how can the Bureau potentially use AI going into the future when it comes to solving investigations? And so we want to be at the forefront of that, but we have to be careful in how we use that, obviously. So those are really the three areas that we're looking at artificial intelligence as we move forward. And a lot of that, again, goes to that innovative piece of making sure that we are ahead of the threat, that we are constantly looking 1, 3, 5 years out on where we're going to be when it comes to this technology, when it comes to investigative genealogy, when it comes to virtual assets. We got to stay ahead of these threats. So that's a little bit about my focus and the office, and I do want to touch on our threats. So next slide. So our threats are all listed here as our mission priorities. I will tell you that first and foremost is our counterterrorism threat. And I will touch briefly on international terrorism first and foremost. As we all know, the Israel-Hamas conflict has definitely increased the threat picture around the world, not just in the Middle East, but definitely here in the US. And so we're working very closely, obviously, with our intelligence community partners here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as well as through our Joint Terrorism Task Force to address leads as we receive them. I can tell you we've definitely seen quite a drastic uptick in threat reporting in the AOR, but I will tell you that the men and women of Dallas FBI, this is their #1 priority. And so I'm surging resources and making sure that we're addressing those threats as quickly as we possibly can. A lot of these threats are related to the Jewish community especially. We've seen a lot of threat reporting, social media threats, bomb hoaxes. It relates to the Jewish community itself and synagogues throughout the AOR. So we're being very cognizant of that and latching up with those security apparatuses of those communities and synagogues to make sure that we have good communication. But ultimately, it really boils down to the fact that we cannot live in a state of fear and worry. But we do have to live in a state of awareness and vigilance. And so what does that mean? That means that you need to be aware of when you're in public, know your surroundings, know your egresses, and then if you see something, say something. I know that that is an old adage that we've beat to death probably for many years and is we've all heard it before, but I think it's all about remaining vigilant and understanding that we are a huge target in the United States of multiple foreign terrorist organizations, and we have to be vigilant and report anything we see as suspicious. And I think that goes back a little bit to what I said earlier, right? The Allen Outlet Mall shooter. He was a white separatist. He had multiple tattoos indicating his bias and ideology. He talked about it extensively with friends and family. He also was extremely heavily armed, but he also had a fascination with active shooters and mass casualty events and talked about that over and over again about his fascination with those events. And if we would have probably had, you hope, information regarding that, then maybe we could at least been forward-leaning and tried to do something to prevent that action to have occurred. So it's definitely something that I'm working to impress upon with our communities and our public outreach is when you see something, say something, and just be vigilant and aware at all times. But going back to international terrorism, obviously, Al-Qaeda, ISIS are still very prevalent throughout the world and are definitely trying to target attacks on not only here in the US, but our interest abroad and citizens abroad. And so we definitely see that as one of the highest risk right now when it comes to the international terrorism threat. We definitely have seen an uptick in juveniles who are being radicalized. This is a very significant issue. We continue to see about a 30% increase year over year of juveniles who are being radicalized by foreign terrorist organizations, and it poses a huge challenge. The federal system, by and large, does not prosecute juveniles, and there are a lot of rules and regulations around that, not to mention just capacity to hold those individuals. They just aren't prepared at the federal level. And so we've had a lot of challenges when it comes to how we deal with juveniles. So we're working very closely with our state and local partners where we can to off-road those individuals and try to get them either prosecuted or assistance at the state and local level. Just this morning, I'm shifting gears a little bit to the domestic terrorism aspects of it and our racially motivated violent extremist program. We had a sentencing just this morning here in Fort Worth of Noah Calderon. He's a 22-year-old who lived in Burleson, white separatist, ultimately had a fascination with Columbine and active shooter events, but particularly Columbine, and had planned to conduct an attack on a school near where he resided south of Fort Worth in Burleson. And ultimately through good communication with the community and some tips that we'd received, we were able to target that individual and ultimately conduct search warrants at his residence and recovered a significant amount of firearms, IEDs that were prepared. They had frag attached to them, and he actually labeled different buckets in his home that as frag, which had nails and ball bearings and the such, and ultimately wanted to commit an attack. And so that's just one example of the many cases that we have ongoing here in North Texas related to terrorism, whether it be international, domestic. We're leaning in, we're focused, and that is by far our number one priority. But followed right behind that, I did want to touch on our cyber threat. When it comes to our cyber threat, it really falls into two buckets for us. It's either crim cyber or it's national security cyber and nation state actors. On the criminal side, we obviously see a significant uptick in ransomware, in business email compromises. Those individuals who are conducting these operations and attacks primarily for financial gain. And so we definitely are leaning in as we obtain information regarding these incidents. We deploy our cyber action teams, or CAT teams, to assist in doing the forensics and ultimately try to conduct attribution towards those threat actors. And ultimately, a lot of that falls back to overseas actors. And so we try to disrupt and ultimately either arrest or conduct other offensive operations in coordination with DoD and other entities to mitigate those threats when it comes to our criminal cyber threats. But on the flip side of that, and I think more importantly, is the nation state actors who are constantly working on a national level to infiltrate our infrastructure. They're constantly trying to obtain our intellectual property. As I mentioned earlier, it's really a huge focus by China and Iran to infiltrate our systems here in the United States. When it comes to China alone, their attempts to conduct operations on our computer systems here in the United States are more than all of our nation state actors' activity combined. So if you take all of those adversaries we have of the US and you add them all up, it still wouldn't match what China is currently doing on a daily basis to conduct intrusions into our systems here in the US. Another interesting statistics that I learned recently was that China currently devotes, I'll take this. If you take all of the agents in the FBI that are currently addressing threats from China related to cyber incidents, and you put them in a room, they're going to be outnumbered at least 50-1 by China in the number of operators they have conducting those attacks. So that should tell you where we're at when it comes to China and their mission to be a global power and do everything they can to obtain our secrets, to obtain our intellectual property, and to basically rule over us in the very near future. I also want to touch on violent crime. Obviously, for me, growing up in the Bureau, if you will, my primary role was working violent crime, where there's violent crime, carjacking, bank robberies, crimes against children. That has been kind of my passion and what I'd worked primarily the most of my career. And so obviously, unfortunately for my squads who handle these matters, that's my forte. And I definitely push them rather hard when it comes to violent crime. But we've definitely seen impacts. As I mentioned earlier, we had multiple task forces that were working with our state and local partners to address violent crime, whether it's our gangs, whether it's groups of individuals who are conducting robberies on our commercial stores, institutions, whether they're conducting ATM robberies, you name it. It runs the gamut when it comes to where we're focusing on violent crime. But a lot of that is definitely done through our task forces. And in this threat, we also see a significant uptick in juveniles as well, and the violence that they're attributing to the criminal activity that we see throughout the North Texas. And so that has been a huge challenge for us at the FBI, again, dealing with that juvenile age of offenders and working with our state and local agencies as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office when we can to prosecute them at the federal level for the violence that they have conducted. Another part of that is obviously the fentanyl issues that we face in this country. Whether it's Sinaloa or the Jalisco cartel, they are pumping in fentanyl at alarming rates to this country. And as you know, the overdose deaths attributed with that substance has skyrocketed throughout the country. And so we are constantly pressing hard when it comes to fentanyl and the investigations and working our way up and out to Mexico, particularly. As you can imagine, and I know it's been reported, one of the big challenges we face is that they can produce fentanyl at a very significantly cheap rate. At this point, fentanyl is going for about 80 cents a pill per thousand at the commercial level. And when you are purchasing it on the streets, it's about 20 to 25 bucks a pill. So people are making a significant amount of money on fentanyl, and it's killing our communities. And so we are obviously leaning in very heavily, especially in the task force environment, working closely with DEA and focusing on the fentanyl distribution here in North Texas. So that's a little bit about what I had as far as our threat picture and a little bit about our office. So with that said, I will definitely take a couple of questions, I think, if we have time. Okay, we got 5 minutes. All right.
So I was just curious what you would say the hardest part for you, like starting off as an FBI agent. I don't know what age you were when you started, but what was like the hardest thing for you to kind of like adjust to?
The hardest thing to adjust to coming in as an agent. I would say time management. Obviously, for me now, I am 24/7 pretty much all the time, and that's kind of how it's been since my career for 22 years. My phone doesn't stop ringing. So I think for me, the biggest challenge has been trying to focus as much as I can on my family. My wife's a physician, and ultimately I've kind of let my career guide our family and do 10 moves. And so this is my last one. I'm home. And she's made it very clear that whether I'm tapped to go back to DC or whatever the case may be, she's not leaving. So my goal is to stay below the radar here in Dallas and not do anything to get pulled back and just keep the lights on, but really lean in and protect, the North Texas area, and especially where I grew up. So.
Hate crimes has made the news, certainly nationally, but could you speak to locally what's happening in the Metroplex without giving any prosecutions going on? But
Sure.
which schools or cities or colleges are the biggest concern for you?
Sure. Well, obviously, the Metroplex, the more inner city you get, the more reporting we get when it comes to hate crimes. I will tell you, when it comes to religion. The Jewish community is obviously the most targeted here when it comes to religion. When it comes to sexual orientation, it's usually gay males that fall into that category. Trying to think, what am I missing? Ethnicity, right. Obviously, race and ethnicity, African Americans are the target in most of those crimes that we've been reported or investigated. I will tell you that by and large, hate crime reporting is really relatively new. It hasn't really been a part of the reporting system for up until probably about 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think the more reporting that's conducted, the better threat picture we're going to have. I would tell you that Fort Worth, the police department and Chief Noakes have definitely leaned in when it comes to hate crime reporting and making sure that their officers are properly identifying those investigations that have a hate crime aspect to it. But it's more, for me, it's also making sure that the chiefs understand what hate crimes are and that they are reporting those so we can get that better accurate picture. Because I don't think we have the right data yet to really make a true attribution of what the threat picture looks like without the reporting.
You indicated that out of the 1,000 new agents 40% were women. Can you tell me what the percentage was of people of color, and if you could disaggregate between Latinx and African American?
So I'm not sure the data specifically to African American, but I do know diversification wise, it was almost 40 to 50% were diversity applicants that fell into some sort of diverse recruitment program. So that could have been African American, it could have been Latino, it could have been any of those. But I don't have those specifics, but I could get those to you.
I'd appreciate knowing. I'm not, and the applicants would be great, but I really want to know the class of 1,000.
Sure. Okay.
What's the starting salary?
I will tell you, it's on the GS level to GS 10. And I will tell you that unfortunately, a lot of our agents who are now being assigned to LA and New York right out of the academy qualify for food stamps. So we're working on that. We're trying to see what we can do to help supplement some of those higher cost of living areas. But when you come out of the academy making about 40, 50 grand a year, it can be tough. So, all right.
Thank you very much. Very informative topic. Always love having law enforcement, national and the local, come into the club. By the way, Ms. Compton is a former retired federal prosecutor, so.
Good.
Will you be available for questions afterwards?
Sure. I'll hang around
Okay,
for-
because I know there's at least one person who asked the applicant question, very interested in possibly a career there. So, Rotary Club, Rotary Worldwide, has this huge mission of ending polio. We started in the 80s. Polio was rampant, hundreds of thousands of cases a year. Last year, 23 cases worldwide, mostly because of Rotary's enduring effort on getting rid of it. In honor of your presentation today, we're making a donation to the Rotary Polio Plus Fund. This is a memento of that.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. We appreciate it. You bet. Closing announcements. Okay, this is the one that dues are due. Okay, next week you'll be receiving your dues statement. They're coming out a little bit earlier because we're trying to shift things forward. I'll be explaining more later on in the next couple months. We're going to try and make a few bylaw changes to shift our dues back a month so we can get our census count in to Rotary District and Rotary International with accurate information and not be paying for people that are no longer with the club. Along with that, another thing on the dues, whenever you do it through a credit card, right now the club incurs approximately a 3% transaction fee. Yes, you're still able to do it with a credit card right now with no additional fee. That's going to be, we're looking to change that in the spring. This one, it's going to be just like it is. However, we prefer if you'll pay with a check, just bring it to the meeting with you, drop it off, because we don't incur fees on that. Last year we had, what was it, Tom? $13,000? $13,500 in credit card. Last year, $13,500 in credit card fees that our club absorbed out of our funds that we could be using to put to better uses, for instance, projects out in our community. So again, dues payment, $630, about $22 of your dues payment, if you're paying with a credit card right now, is going towards those transaction fees. And we'd really like to not have that and not have our club having to pay that stuff again, so we could use it on more worthy projects. That's it for that. Now, next week, Veterans Day, Major General Kevin Pottinger is coming. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great weekend.